What is going on, you guys and gals? You are listening to Cheap Talk Wrestling. I'm TJ Albin, alongside with Dylan Sariva and Brandon Carr, and my friend John Cena Sr. Guys, welcome to the show.
Nice to be
excited.
here.
John, thank you so much for sitting down with us. This is a great honor. I'm glad you are our inaugural, our first guest. I'm excited to talk with you. We got a lot of great questions. I hope you're excited to talk with us.
I'm very excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this. Let's see what kind of questions you have. Sometimes they're okay, and sometimes they're not okay.
So, I'll get the ball rolling here a little bit.
Go ahead.
I'll get the ball. Right, might as well. So, John, what hooked you on wrestling?
Brian Panties matches, pillow fight. No. What hooked me on professional wrestling was, and I think if you look at any of the things I've done, DVDs, etc., you'll understand that when my sons were younger, I guess I went out and got cable TV so we could watch professional wrestling. I grew up in an era of professional wrestling that's a lot different from the era that we have today. So I kind of got enthralled with it. I wanted to see more of it. I wanted my sons to be exposed to it. And as we watched more, we all became more involved in it, especially myself, to the point where I eventually wanted to become part of the business. But that's really how it started. It was seeing some of these superstars on TV, not having a TV, hearing people talk about professional wrestling, because it used to be down in Salem. They had it down there at Bridge Street at the arena. Kowalski, the big guys were there. So I just said, what an intriguing business. The people would actually get in the ring and fight. And then the more I watched, the more I learned, the more I wanted to get involved. So I guess that's how it all started, that cable TV and a dream.
Love it. So one of my questions I wanted to ask you, because you talked about how you got into wrestling, were there some guys that you kind of looked up to while you were watching it? Like some guys that you like to watch that kind of influenced you to, keep pursuing this?
I think when I look back on the days and now still involved in professional wrestling, I think people like Bruno Sammartino, I think Peter Morales, Stone Cold Steve Austin, you look J.J. Strongbow, the Grand Wizard, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Captain Louis Albano. I had the opportunity to work with him several times. But when you look back, those are the people that you look up to, because those are the people that lived and breathed. Pat Patterson is another individual. Wow, what a loss to professional wrestling. But there's another individual who I looked up to and still do. God rest his soul, Pat. But those are the guys that I followed and that I tried to learn from as much as I could, not necessarily working with them, watching DVDs. My day was VHS. How's that? Lincoln and I would stand there and draw pictures. But I hope that answers your question.
No, yeah, definitely. That answers it.
So I know you just said you've worked with Captain Lou Albano in the past. Is there any sort of moment or anything like that that sticks out to you about working with him, like a favorite memory?
He was such an intriguing individual. I know one of the times I was working with him, we were talking before the show, and he always wore a cross. I never saw that before. And I asked him what was up, and he talked about how life didn't make much of a difference to him until he had to have his open heart surgery. And then he made a promise, being wheeled down, that if he came out of it, he would always honor Jesus. And, kind of strange when you see a man and you go, nah, he can't, that's not the way he came. That's not true. And if you get any autographs of Lou, you'll see we signed some of those that way. I suppose working with him as a face versus a heel or vice versa, I can only tell you this, that he gave you every opportunity to be who you wanted to be and who you are, played off of you, and gave you the ability to play off of him. A true professional in the business. I really can't tell you anything spectacular. other than learning and working with a human being who people thought was different because he had elastic bands here and there. I suppose, if anything, I probably wonder how much stock he had in the rubber band company. I don't really know. But he was an enjoyable person, had a lot of stories to tell, down to earth, cared about the business. I had a lot of fun working with him. I guess that's all I can really say about it.
Going off of that question, you talked about Captain Lou Albino, but is there some other people that you had really good relationships with, or some people that you just like talking to about the business, or some guys you liked working with besides him?
Pat Patterson, there is a real human being, and I said this when I wrote on my Twitter page that I meet a lot of people, but Pat was always happy. Pat enjoyed life to its fullest. He never expected anything in return. He gave 100% of himself. He was always willing to sit and talk and explain. I just can't say enough good words about him. Jake the Snake Roberts is another person that I have to work with. Tito Santana. These people, Tatanka, these people were really outstanding individuals. And you can't, for me, if you said to me, pick one, you can't, because each one of these individuals brought something different and new to the table. Different and new. I remember I was working a show with John and Pat and Michael Hayes were sitting at the bar, and I don't really drink. So Pat's over here talking to me, say, "Hey, how you doing? You know who's looking for you? Nobody's looking for you." And so he starts to explain to me about professional wrestling. And I remember Michael Hayes saying, hey, that's Cena's old man. He's in the profession. He does it independently. He says, "Oh, well, then you tell me he was a mark like us, that crazy bastard." I'm going, "Oh, wow." And that's the kind of guy that Pat was. When he sang that song, "I Did It My Way," I don't know how this feel, but I really believe that he believed and he did do it his way. There's a man that had a tough time coming up, a real tough time coming up, not only because of difficulty in the language, but because of what he had that he couldn't reveal. So you take a look at that. Jake Roberts, another guy, outstanding individual. Look at the tremendous change he's made in his life. Greg the Hammer Valentine, I had a lot of fun with Greg. He was a great individual. I always joke about, working with Greg. Sometimes you wonder if he's really there. He just kind of does his thing. But when he gets in that ring, let me tell you, leg out. A guy that kind of touched me, and I only worked with twice, was Kamala Jarez. A great human being. He's this rugged, huge guy. And what a gentle giant. A gentle giant, a real human being. We could talk about other things about that situation. I choose not to. Big Show is another person. If I bring myself up to speed, I can remember being at a wrestling show and Show was in the ring. He did his, ba, ba, ba. It came out of the ring. He came over. I thought he was going to give me a high five because I was sitting there with some friends. No, he grabbed me. He's all full of sweat. He's rubbing my face and his chest going, ha, 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 ha. What do you do with a guy that's this big? It's got a handle to cover your face 5 times. So those are just a few examples of the fun that I've been allowed to have and the wonderful human beings that I've been allowed to participate with and learn from, because some of these people that I worked with, I actually grew up watching. Who would have thought that I'd be in the ring with a Jake Roberts? Who would have thought that I'd be at an autograph signing with Chief Jay Strongbow? In the ring with Tito Santana, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Who would have thought? I watched these guys on TV. Hulk Hogan never had the chance. But that's okay, brother, because I don't want to wrestle you anyway. So, I've been very fortunate and very lucky.
John, I want to bring up your son obviously being in the business. Going through these memories that you bring up with a lot of these great legends, what was your thoughts of having John come into the business of professional wrestling?
Surprise. I remember taking John and his brother Dan to professional wrestling shows at the local high schools. the Salem Gym, the Salem Armory in Salem, Mass. Watching Pedro Morales fight the Wolfman. Jake Roberts was there. I remember those little things. And when John moved out to go to California to become work in bodybuilding, if you told me that my son would be involved in the world of professional wrestling, I would have probably said to you, don't smoke that stuff. It's not good for you. I remember chatting and I said, it's okay. You're doing all right, blah, blah, blah. And I remember when he got on the plane, I gave him a silver dollar. I don't know if he still has it, to go to California. And he said, what's this for? I said, you're going to be using it to come home because you're never going to make it. I think that's when he maybe said, ha, 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 right? Watch me. But there's a case of where he worked 80 hours a week at Gold's Gym, slept in his car, eating protein bars. And then all of a sudden, somebody sees this young man in a gym. And then I get a call from a young man named John Cena Sr. and says, hey, Dad, I got another job. Doing what? Professional wrestling. No. UPW. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. UPW. So me being the cynic I am, I said, good, 2 months I'll be out. You can prove it to me. And he did. I went out and there he was at UPW with Victoria, with Batista, Samoa Joe. Surprised? Yes. Because if you would have told me my son would be in the professional wrestling business, I would have said you're crazy.
So given the other relationships that you have in wrestling, right? You have your son, you have all these legends. I want to bring up someone that I know of in Showcase Pro Wrestling, the Nature Boy, Gary Gold. What is your relationship with him? What's been going on?
I remember the first time I met Gary Gold, and it wasn't at Showcase Pro Wrestling. It was at Boston Wrestling. I was asked to manage with him. A guy named Chris Sataro had a wrestling promotion, and I worked with Gary Gold again there. Then Showcase Pro Wrestling comes along, and I'm asked to manage this guy. Who do you want me to manage? And they said, the Nature Boy. I said, whoa, woo, Ric Flair, wow, what an honor. And by the way, I worked with Ric Flair a couple of times. What an honor and a privilege to work with a great human being. Another guy I can't say enough good things about. But they said, no, it's Nature Boy Gary Gold. And I think Gary Gold, and I'm not laughing because it wasn't Ric Flair. I think Gary and I had a relationship of professional wrestler and manager that was, I think, well made. Gary was the face. You got to remember that I was always a heel, a tweener, and then a face. So when I took over Gary Gold, it was kind of like, how do you do this transition? And it's very difficult to be a face. It's easier to be a heel. And so Gary and I think 10, 12 years, we've been through all kinds of things. I remember he was in a match. I forget the young man's name, but he really was this, MMA fighter thing. He's going to go in and kick and haul. And I said, well, look, here's a couple of ground rules. Don't mention this. Don't mention that. And understand that this is entertainment. Enjoy, don't hurt. I remember him whacking Gold. And then kicking his ribs, and Gary's on the side. He can't breathe. We actually had to bring out the EMTs. It wasn't a work. It was a real deal. I thought that I was going to lose a friend. And Gary was laying there holding his ribs. And I remember his words exactly. When I get up, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to knock him out. I said, don't do it, brother. It's not the way to do business here. And so we got up, we do what we had to do. And I guess when he got in the back, Gary and the other person just kind of left. Not a very good sportsman. And it's a shame. And I'm not going to mention anybody's names, but they inducted this person into the New England Hall of Fame. So it doesn't make sense. But the relationship that Gary Gold and I have had on a professional and personal level, I think is something that you don't find today. Gary Gold himself, his mother, his father, We became good friends. And in the world of professional wrestling, I think Gary gave me a few pointers. A few pointers. You know, there's a young man, and he still is young. I know people used to joke about him and call him Gary Old. And there was a promotion who I won't mention either that did a thing about when Gary has the baby, what will it be? Which I thought was very tasteless, very childish. And I actually came into Gary's defense on that by walking away from that promotion until somebody grew up. And the relationship with Gary Gold and I has been outstanding. We've had a lot of matches, a lot of good matches with the Brickhouse Baker, who's another great guy out there in the indie circuit that's kind of retired. We did a dog food match with him and his sons. I think we sold that program over 7 months with Showcase Pro Wrestling. But Gary Gold is an outstanding human being. He's a genuine person. He has a lot to offer if people will listen, especially the young people in this business today. I don't think they take advantage of a person like Gary Gold, who has the knowledge and experience that he can help you get ahead. They just don't do it. But it was kind of funny how we got, manager, wrestler. I think it worked out very well. And every time I do a thing at Showcase, I hope Gary is there. I hope someday they might work a program where it's me against Gary Gold. I think that would be the ultimate swerve. The ultimate swerve. And that's what professional wrestling is all about. So I think that swerve will be good, where either I turn on Gold or Gold turns on me. Because I think Gary has reached a point in his life, as most of us do, where it's time to slow down and maybe get into that manager position. He's great. He could do an awful lot. In walks Cena, in walks Gold, in walks the Swerve. Bingo. I think we got some good storylines. Hope that answers your question.
100%. 100% on that one. No, like the relationship that you have with a lot of local promotions that, like you brought up with Showcase, you are named the commissioner. I mean, I announced for him. I know you, my boss, if you want to put it that way.
You've been there. You've been there. You see how I do business.
Let me ask you, how does it feel to be the commissioner of Showcase Pro Wrestling, to have that role?
It is wrestling entertainment. But to be in that position or have a position similar to that, I think puts a lot of weight on you, only because the crowd looks at the commissioner or the boss to set the tone for the matches. When you have a wrestler who gets out of control and you're supposed to make the match, you can make that crowd very happy, or you can make that crowd very angry. If you look at the one I just did for Christmas meetings, I believe that's the one it was, the one they did on the 19th. I think that was I think that was the date.
Yep, there was. It was Seasons Beatings.
Yeah. Yep. And that was there again as an example of how much authority does a commissioner really have? Well, there was an example where I exercised my authority. You take yourself and put you in that position and say, you know what, I'm tired of you booking these matches. I'm tired of you being the king. There's only one king here. And this is not a king, it's a democracy. So guess what? My vote says, Vega, you're going to face, and Blackwell, here's who you're going to face, and this is the way it's going to be. Now, the crowd's either going to love you or they're going to hate you. As commissioner, with Howell, you mentioned my good old friend out there, the man with the cane, the skinny guy that I've F5 several times, who dresses a little different than most people, and is a little different than most people. But, there's a case of where you exercise your right as a commissioner, the boss, to either bring the crowd to their feet, or as the commissioner, you take the beat down, which basically is a beat down of your authority. Because here's this heel who has laid you out in the middle of the ring. Laid you out. And what's your next move going to be? Well, who knows? I know what my next move is, to make a match between him and his wrestler against that person and me, which we haven't done yet, which I certainly hope happens. Maybe as commissioner, that might be one of the things I'll talk to Chris Blackheart, who's another guy that thinks see, there I go with the character. See how it works, folks. But that's the thing with the commissioner. You're supposed to make the rules, the regulations, and keep everybody in order. It's like the chairman of the board. You'll do what I say because I'm the boss. Otherwise, you're fired. See, so that's how the commissioner works. I have a lot of fun with it.
It is a lot of fun, and you're working with a lot of great people. And one of those people originally was Chris Blackheart, right? What was your relationship? What's your relationship like with him? I know right now with what's going on, but before that, what was the relationship like?
I think that when I was contacted by Showcase Pro Wrestling to do a show, like every person in this business, you're reluctant at some point to say yes because of what they stand for. You know, here's a guy saying, "Come on in, we'll do this, we'll do that." Well, you know what? I'm going to give you the title belt tomorrow. Yeah, right. Tomorrow never comes. So I sat down when I was first asked to work with Chris Blackheart, and we sat down and we talked. And I feel I've got a pretty good feel for human beings. I really felt that I was talking to a genuine, honest, straightforward human being who cares about the people working. See, there's nobody that works for me. They all work with me. And I'm very thankful, and I mean this, to all the young men and women out there, WWE, the indies that I have been allowed to work with. I really feel honored by that. And that's what Blackheart was. I was honored to be part of Showcase. He is a true professional. He kept his word. And the relationship we had was that of him, you know, an independent worker with a promoter. And that's the way it stayed. We had input. He allowed input into the matches. He allowed input into what you thought the show should look like or what you should do. And he hasn't changed that to this day. He cares about who's there. He cares about his product. Excuse me, he's not about elevating himself to the top, which some promoters are. You know, so I just think it was an honor to work for him. And I hope, and it still is an honor to do stuff for him. And I hope that things will change so I can get back working with Showcase Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, John, you talked about, you know, working with like different promotions. You're kind of seeing nowadays with AEW, they're kind of like venturing out and working with different promotions like New Japan, like TNA and NWA. I just kind of want to get like your thoughts on that. Just your opinion on them going out there and working with these different promotions.
Brandon, are you talking about the individual wrestlers moving on from a promotion to say AEW, or
no, just like
AEW?
No, just like them working with the different promotions, like they're bringing in guys from these different companies, but they're still part of that, you know, the company they were before.
So what you're really saying is the Impact AEW setup.
Yeah, just like
that kind of storyline.
Yeah, just kind of like
I think it's good for business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to say. I think that was probably one of the smartest moves. What's the last thing you'd ever expect? They pulled the swerve, and I think the swerve worked. It really worked. And look at how the viewership increased as soon as that storyline came forward. You need that type of stuff in this business to keep. What was the most successful time in pro wrestling when things were up and down? It was the Monday Night Wars. Remember that? WCW versus WWF. Man, remember all the stuff that went on there? And people would tune in even when Bischoff would give you the matches because they already saw the tape. People didn't care. So now here you got AEW bringing in Impact Wrestling, and they expect more of this to happen. I don't know about you, but I can't wait. I think it's a great storyline.
Oh,
and I think Japan getting involved is even greater.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that New Japan is any less than AEW or Impact. It's an idea of how to utilize your talent to the best of their abilities and bring something new into the business. Then everybody kind of goes their ways. It's no different than the invasions that WWE had from NXT. Remember how you followed that?
Yep. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how that turns out, though. It's cool.
Yep.
So going off of what you just said, John, with what AEW is doing and working dependently with all these other promotions, do you think it's better to sort of revert back to that Attitude Era style, edgier product, or is the PG era still the right direction?
I'm a fan of the Attitude Era. I got to be honest with you. This PG stuff is good to a point, but how do you take a person, male or female, because in my book, the women have been underutilized, underestimated for years. It's about time they got their due. Hooray, hooray. And I've been an advocate for a long time for that. But how do you take a man or a woman, put them in a steel cage, bash their head against steel, fencing, raking their head for 45 minutes and not one drop of blood, not one cut? How does that become believable? Maybe the Attitude Era was a little bit over the top with some of the things that they did. There's nothing to say that we can't bring it back a hair or two, but still leave what you, I believe, Dylan and Brandon, and you haven't might wanted to see. I know what I want to see, that edgy product of not knowing where it's going to happen, why it's going to happen. You know, a guy getting up all bloody. I mean, a John Moxley defending his title, all full of blood, and still able to walk and to get blindsided. I mean, WWE, don't get me wrong now, excellent product, top notch, first class. They've had a few of those, but I think that Attitude Era was an important era. And I think what they should have done, instead of going all PG, taking the R and the X rated out of it, they should have mixed it. A little bit of everything is good. And I think then the product would have been a little bit better and a little bit more believable.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think, we can find that healthy balance. So with today's current WWE product, you would want to see some sort of like you said, when they're in the cage or they're in Hell in a Cell, something like that, you can cut and you can bleed, and it draws you in more to the product. It makes the storyline itself more believable.
Well, there's a time and a place for everything. I don't believe that somebody should go in there and just, gig for the sake of gigging. That's crazy. I worked for a promotion. I guess they're very successful. They're going to be coming back. But one of the guys that's there, his big deal is always going to bleed. Why? What's the reason for this? So you've got to, what I'm saying is, you just can't put somebody in a steel cage and say, okay, you're going to gig. No, it doesn't make any sense. There's got to be a reason for that to happen. And if that's not there, then it shouldn't happen. But I think that everything has a place and a time. And I think we forgot that with the PG era. Look, I'm not saying get out there and drop the F-bomb. That's just ludicrous. I'm not saying get out there and just talk about, young ladies and women or men or a sexual orientation. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. But there's no reason why you can't bring some of that in a logical way so that it doesn't demean anyone, but still gets you the heat that you need to go ahead with the storylines.
No, I want to kind of like go into that logic, right? Because you see guys now versus how it was back in like the 80s, 90s, there was no social media, right? Nowadays, you see people like congratulating each other, like heels or baby faces, kind of breaking that kayfabe like boundary, right? What are your thoughts on like the social media platforms being used today in wrestling versus how wrestling was when it was like with the VHSs, with everything that's been going on in the wrestling world back then?
Times change. And in order to keep up with the times, I think that social media, if used correctly, is a tremendous tool. It can do nothing but further the product and open up the talent. It's great. It's a great tool to be used. I think the problem that we have with social media is there are some individuals who take it to the next level as a self-serving social media. That's not what it's for. if you're involved in WWE, AEW, Atlantic Pro Wrestling here that I work for, in Newburyport, Showcase Pro Wrestling, Boston Wrestling, whatever it might be. My job on social media, as it would be if I were a manager, my job as a manager is not to put me over, is to put you over. And that's what social media was supposed to be for. Get out there and plug your matches. Make it a kayfabe situation that Drew McIntyre faces Goldberg. There's a little bit of a deal that's almost believable. And if it's done right on social media, that could be a great play. But you can't go out there and say, okay, now about my personal life, and we're all having dinner together, and Goldberg served the wine, and my wife baked. That's not, no. There are certain things that you let people in on behind the curtain, and there are certain things that you don't. You know, before in the business, good guys and bad guys never ate in the same room. I remember doing a show for a Spanish promotion, and separate dressing rooms. Had to have separate dressing rooms. Couldn't be on the same side of the arena. It was awful. Awful good, I think, because that added more believability to the product. And with social media, what's happening is a lot of this stuff is leaking. It shouldn't be leaking. And social media by the professional wrestlers should, and men and women, should be used to benefit the product, to benefit the character, to benefit and promote the storyline. I don't know why they don't do that. So social media, I think, is a sign of the times. Everything changes. Everything changes. Look at professional wrestling 30 years ago and look at it now. It ain't the same, brother. And it won't be the same in 2040. I won't be around to see that. Maybe I will, who knows? But we'll see. So that's my take on social media.
So bringing up during the social media, right? We bring up these current stories that we're talking about. And in this case, we're talking before the Royal Rumble, right? What is your thoughts on the Royal Rumble card? I know we're kind of like a day after this is released on February 1st, but what are your predetermined thoughts before the Royal Rumble?
Predetermined thoughts on the Royal
Or
Rumble?
pre-thoughts.
Who's going to win? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes. The long question for me. Yes.
You know, I don't know. I really don't know. I have feelings about the Royal Rumble. I've said it openly before. I guess I'll say it again. I certainly hope that Drew McIntyre doesn't drop the belt. I certainly hope that doesn't happen. If it does, all I can say is this. I hope the writers have a plan for Goldberg. You know, like I said before, I've met Goldberg twice, had a chance to be at one of his shows, worked with the show. I certainly wouldn't want to tangle with that man, and I really mean it right up front. Honorable, great human being. I wouldn't want to be in an alley. I don't think I want to have a bar fight. I think he'd probably make wallpaper out of me. But there reaches a point in time where a Drew McIntyre, up and coming, what good does it do to drop a belt? I don't know what it's going to prove. I don't know where we're going to go from here. I'd like to see Edge, as we talked about earlier. I'd like to see him get elevated a little more. I think Daniel Bryan could be used in a different way, in a different position. I'd like to see that happen. I was looking the other day at the list of entrants into the Royal Rumble. I see John Cena. I see Stone Cold Steve Austin. I see Kane. What the hell? Vince McMahon? I'm throwing my name in there too. You know what? And I'm going to win. And what's that going to do for the business? That's what it's going to do for the business. So I think in order to take these things seriously, which I do, I think that you've got to look at what the contest is all about. You know, the Royal Rumble is supposed to be the last person standing, the last one in. I think we can pull some surprises there, especially with the women's division. I'm a fan of Bayley. You know, I don't know what you guys like. Maybe you like Sasha Banks. I think she's a great person. I had a chance to work with her many years ago. I respect her. I think she's great. But I think Bayley's got that edge, that character. The women's matches, there's another person. I just don't know what to say. I think this Rumble is kind of like a Rumble. It's up in the air. How do you make picks? How do you make picks and see who's going to come out on top on this one? You know, look at the matches you have. You tell me the matches that you want me to give you an answer on, and I'll do the best I can. They're all like throw them up in the air, see if they stick. I still, for the life of me, sit back and go, Drew McIntyre against Goldberg. Okay, I'm really excited to see that one. You see where I'm going with that? So as a fan, if you want to keep this alive, you've got to put something in there that's going to, I'll tell you what I would do if I were doing Goldberg versus Drew McIntyre. I have Goldberg whack him, just about ready to pin him, and who runs to the ring and knocks the shit out of Goldberg? Brock Lesnar. You want to throw a swerve in there? There's a swerve. Now Drew McIntyre faces Brock Lesnar. Been done, but guess what? Might even work as a three-way this time. So I don't know. Maybe I'm writing storylines I shouldn't be. Maybe I'm saying stuff I don't know what I'm talking about. But stop and think about it. What are some of the other people you have on there for cards? Who's the Fiend? The Fiend. Who's he doing? What's he up against?
Well, and that's my thing. I have to say I love your opinion on Bayley. I thought her heel turn was much needed. I think it brought life back to her character. I think it was a good storyline decision for WWE. But that's something I've said on our podcast before, and just talking to Brandon and TJ outside. I think the Fiend is one of the most underutilized characters. I think it's something so different than the current product. And seeing him lose to a part-timer, it was just frustrating because he was so hot with the fans. He had good, genuine reaction, and then they just stopped it. So me personally, I'm hoping he wins the the Rumble just to give him some momentum back.
I'm kind of hoping he wins the Rumble myself. I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this young man is Bray Wyatt, I was backstage, and I said, you know, it's a wonderful thing to see something like this. And I said, you probably right now have one of the best characters in WWE to date. I mean, you could just feel it. Look at how the fans responded to this man. I think they missed a lot with this young man. Sister Abigail, you know the movie Annabelle? Sister Abigail should have been there. Believe me, it would have made it more intriguing. Now, what do I think of the current product with the Fiend? Spot on. But it's got to get more mystical. There's got to be more creatures. There's got to be more fiends. And if it were me, maybe he should even steal the Undertaker's urn. Eternal life to the Fiend. See me? That's why I only drink water. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of cases of people who are misused. The momentum goes and somehow they take it away. I don't mean to digress, but let's take Braun Strowman. I was behind that guy 10,000%. And what happened? He's going like woo, 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 woo. And who beats him? What happens to this giant? Now, where is he? What do you hear about Braun Strowman? You see where I'm going with this? So, and you know, and I'm going to just go out on a limb again and get myself in trouble. But Roman Reigns, I was not a fan of Roman Reigns. I don't care what podcast I did, what interview I did, I said the same thing. When they turned Roman Reigns heel, it's the best thing they ever could have done for the business and Roman Reigns. That man has got so, and he had all this talent before. They just wanted to make him the man. They pushed him too fast, too soon. Now what they've done is they made him the chief, the king of the tribe. And guess what? Look where he is. Outstanding. And he's got one of the best mouthpieces in the business. Paul Heyman. The best.
So bringing up the mouthpieces, right? You being a manager, looking at manager to manager. What are your thoughts on Paul Heyman?
I don't know where he's going from here. I don't know what plans they have for him. I think when he ended with Brock Lesnar, that might have been the end of his run. But he came up with somebody came up with the Roman Reigns idea. I think Paul Heyman has a great mind for this business. Whenever I do a seminar or I talk about, being a manager or doing a promo, I tell people, look at Vicky Guerrero. How do you get heat? She never swore at the crowd. She never made gross comments. She just came out and stood there and used one word, excuse me, and they went nuts. Paul Heyman is another example. When I teach, I say, take a look at this man. What is he? He's the greatest. All he has to do is come through the curtain. They boo him without him saying one word. A lot can be learned from this man, not only about how to be what you need to be, but they should be tapping his knowledge on what he knows about this business. He has a lot of good, I don't know, mindset, storyline. He knows how to envelop and put the characters to work. How much longer he'll be there? I hope forever. As long as they need him and he wants to stay. I think he's a great individual, a great human being. Probably a person to look up to and watch if you're interested in being a manager or helping out teaching promos. Other guys, Bobby the Brain Heenan, God rest his soul, the Grand Wizard. I had a chance to work with him once or twice. What is another guy? Captain Lou Albano. You can't take anything away from these men and women. Women are underrated on this also, you know? So, I mean, you know, Sherry Martel. But Paul Heyman, in my business, in my opinion right now, he's at the top of his game. He always has been. I think he always will be. He's a man to be looked up to. He's a man to be respected. And a man that we can all learn from. And he's proved one thing, in my opinion. I've been singing this song for a long time. We need the return of the managers. We need that because you have people like Roman, outstanding wrestler, can be that bad guy, but give him the stick. Nah, it's like asking Mickey Mouse to be the Pope. It just doesn't work. But you put Paul Heyman on that stick. Good evening. My name is Paul Heyman, and I want to tell you about my. What happens right away? Already, Roman Reigns has got the heat like you've never had it. So I think there's a lot to be said. And kudos to Paul Heyman. I really mean that. I use him as an example all the time. Hope he doesn't mind. But it's a great example, along with Vicky Guerrero and those other people that I've mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to ask you, because obviously you've done managerial work and commissioner of Showcase Pro Wrestling and have done a lot of things, but you go by in the business Johnny Fabulous, and I was just kind of wondering like where you came up with that name, because I thought it was, you know, it's a good name.
I use Johnny Fabulous and John Cena Sr. Johnny Fabulous, I had just gone through a rough time in my life. I was really down in the dumps, and there was an ad in one of the local wrestling things. You know, somebody said to me, "Hey, look at this, Cena. They're looking for a ring announcer." So I text John. I said, "John, you know, I'm looking to do something. They're looking for a ring announcer. What do you think?" He said, "Oh man," that's what he called me, "old man. Why don't you give it a shot?" So I remember going down to Star Wars Pro Wrestling, which was run by Knuckles Nelson. I went to the ring. I did an announcement, ring announcer, much like you do. I'm done. He goes, "Wow, nice set of pipes, man. Good." I said, "Well, thank you." And he said, "But I've already got someone." I said, "Oh, okay, no problem." I had another promotion that was looking too. So I said, he said, "No, don't go away. I'm looking for a heel manager." Okay, right time, right place. Now we just got to come up with a name for this guy. So Johnny Cash, Johnny Cashman, no, that's not going to work. I said, "You know what? I just feel great. I feel fabulous." And he goes, "What?" I said, "I feel great. I feel fabulous." And I said, "You know, this person that we're going to create, this character that I want to be, what do people hate most? People who are rich, people who demean other people, people who make you feel like 2 cents and cheat to win." I said, "You know what? Johnny Fabulous." And Knuckles Nelson said, "Johnny Fabulous, wow." And from that day on, Johnny Fabulous was born. And he's been a success wherever I take him, wherever this character and I go. As a face or a heel. because Fabo can be either, I mean, my whole thing, I think I got some, I don't know, I'll check and see. I always go to Walmart with these. I have my Fabo bucks. They're all $1 million bills. And that's how Fabo was started, with my briefcase, with demeaning people. I remember the first match I did, I came in with a briefcase and a pad of paper. Nobody knew who I was or what I was. I sat there and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm taking notes for professional wrestling. I work for a promotion. We're looking for some wrestlers." And then I get up and I remember Miss Hampton. I just, she started to cry. And then the fans, I just turned on them. It was horrible. It was fun. It was actually fun. But Johnny Fabulous was born that way. And when he's a face, because it's a whole different persona. But that's how Johnny Fabulous came to be. There was a question of what we're going to call him: Johnny Blues, Johnny Cashman. I said, I feel fabulous about this. This is great. Bingo. And Johnny Fabulous came into being, and we've taken him a long way. He has his own private soda. He has his own cigars. He has his own cash. What else can you do if you're the richest man in the world?
What is your favorite independent wrestling moment that you've been a part of?
You know what? I really can't pick one moment that I can say what. Okay, if you have to say to me, what was the biggest surprise in the independent circuit that you worked, and the moment you might have enjoyed the most, I would say it's the show we put on for my son Daniel, who was a police officer in Westerby Sergeant, when he was involved in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. Thank God his leg was damaged, nothing else. God was truly with him. He still suffers from that now. He's still a police officer, thank God. May they all be safe. But I said, we're going to do a fundraiser. And we did. My son John was there. And believe this or not, I got a call. Hello? I said, it's not. No, it can't be. I mean, this is Vince. I said, yeah, I'm going to be at that show. Put me on the poster. No, it's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. But he said he'd be there. So I said to my son, Vince is going to be here. I mean, I got to tell you something. To show the outpouring of love that people had for what we were doing. We gave money to Mothers for Drunk Driving. We gave portable breathalyzers and donations to the local police and state police. We sold 1,500 tickets. We sold it out. John did autographs. That was gone. Crazy. We raffled off stuff. Crazy. Stop. Nick Dinsmore was there. They sent him down. So here we are in the ring with Cena. We'll laying out the match. And before the match, I said, well, I guess it's not going to happen. Vince said he was going to show up. And so what happens is I get in the ring. I kiss the girl. I get thrown out of the ring. I get up. I'm looking. I grab the ring. I see a pair of Shine shoes. I said, who the hell's got Shine shoes here? Nobody. He looks down, and it was Vince McMahon. The crowd's cheering. They're going nuts. And I look up, and I remember all I said to him was, what are you doing in my ring? And he said, anything I want. And I said, okay. And that's what he did do. And it ended up with John giving him the attitude adjustment. I suppose that was a highlight because the man of that caliber, that's why I think he's such a great human being. You really have to know the man. Great human being, cares about the business, cares about his people. But for him and Linda McMahon to take time to come down to that little independent show of 1,500 people for a fundraiser for a police officer who was injured in duty, to make that appearance, and for John Cena, for Nick Dinsmore, we had two other stars to come in to do that. Wow, what a moment in professional wrestling that was for me. Honestly, not so much to be wow, Vince, but wow, look at how much people care and how much do. That really sticks in my mind. It really does.
It's crazy to think like for me and Dylan, our dads are part of the Fall River Police Department. My dad was a detective. Dylan, your dad's still on in Fall River. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, he's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, like we understand, we feel for you, and especially having that outpour of emotion during that night, especially that's something that's amazing. And like talking about these essential workers, police are one of them. Talking about during this time right now, we're talking about is we're in the pandemic phase of our lives, right? We're experiencing COVID-19. What are your thoughts on the wrestling business with COVID-19 going on right now?
Well, I guess the only thing I can say is that COVID-19 has upset a lot of wagons. It's made life a lot different. I don't believe that life, excuse me, as we know it, will ever be the same. We've gone through something in this country that people never believed we'd ever see. We've gone through a split nation, which I thought I would never ever see. That happened in the Confederacy. I never thought in my lifetime I would see that ever again. The pandemic, people dying. I never thought I would see a plague in my lifetime, even though we've had them, but nothing to this dimension of what we're going through now. It's upset a lot of apricots in business, and restaurants, and human beings, and lives and jobs. In the world of professional wrestling, what COVID has done, it's taken away the incentive that the performers need to really go out there and do their thing. And that's the fans. I know, just for being a little guy like me, I know my position. I'm an independent guy. I've had a few shots on some big shows, but you know what? In the long run, thank God I was allowed to do it. But when you don't have the crowd to cheer you on, to boo you, to I've had people throw beer and false teeth at me. It leaves something to be desired. Because when you look at these shows with empty auditoriums, even a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble, if nobody's there, what you have is nothing. You have a bunch of people going out there showing how they can do athletic moves. That's really what you see. You get to see what's behind the curtain. You can see the wait for the next move. You can see that happening. I really believe that professional wrestling will come back bigger and stronger. I really believe this. I believe that what's happened is the product has been taken away to the point that, if I can quote somebody, never give up. They never gave up. They found a way to make it so that we can still enjoy professional wrestling, that we can still enjoy the storylines. So I think that when you remove something and bring it back, because you haven't had it, doesn't mean you don't want it. It means that you want to look at it to make sure it's what you left before you started. So I think they'll be back strong. I really do. I think the stars, the performers can't wait for this. I think the fans can't wait for it. On the indie circuit, that satisfied a lot of people because they couldn't afford the big ticket numbers to go to Boston, to go to Connecticut, New York. So I think that the indie circuit will be big. It'll be back again, bigger than ever, probably, I hope. And the same thing with WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling. We've had a time in history where things had to stop, but we found a way to still make it work. If we had given up, and if they had said no more wrestling, if they had said no more shows, then I think we'd be in worse shape than we are now. But the fact that they went out there and they said, we're not going to stop, we're going to try, we're going to succeed, no matter how ludicrous it sounds or looks, we're going to give them what they want. It's very difficult to watch a show with cardboard figures. Very difficult to have sound pumped in or allowing 50 to 100 people in the arena. But I think when all is said and done, and by June or July, please God, we'll have some semblance of normalcy back. Then I think that you'll see it'll be slow. Nothing is going to be rapid because there's always going to be the uncertainty of what happens if I go to a WrestleMania with 100,000 people and no mask. There's always going to be that question. So I don't see any damage. There was some damage control already in place. So I think that things will go well. I think it'll come back and be whole again.
And just one last thing for me, John. Do you have any bits of advice or anything to give to someone who's looking to get into the business?
I suppose I say the same thing to everybody. One, make sure it's something you really want to do. This is not an I business, which a lot of performers today believe it is. It's a we business. We're in this together. When I get in that ring, I'm taking care of you and you're taking care of me. Be dedicated to whatever it is you decide to do. Be it managing, refereeing. You know, referee's important. They really hold the storyline together. A lot of people don't get it. Without that referee, the whole gimmick thing is gone. It's lost. Go to a good wrestling school. Don't try to be a backyard wrestler. If something you go to a wrestling school and they say to you, train with us for 2 months, 3 months, you'll be in the ring, run. Don't walk, run. Because you end up hurting yourself or hurting someone else. Seek knowledge. Go out and ask the questions. Don't be afraid to say, I did it, John did it, a lot of the young guys I work with, the women, what can I do better? What did I do wrong? You know, I remember cutting a promo on Roddy Piper, God rest his soul, for Big Time Wrestling. Thank God Spike Dudley was in the back. I thought that Piper was available to come to the ring. I didn't realize he was still signing autographs. Here I am cutting a promo, and the man can't respond. I go in the back and I get my butt torn open by Spike Dudley. I learned something that day. I learned something. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't expect to be a star today. Walter Kowalski had a very fair saying, you know, shoot for the moon, and maybe on the way up, you'll grab a star. Love what you do. If you don't love this business and you don't have fun in this business, then get out. Really, get out. Because I have so much fun. I meet so many people. I love what I do. So, one, decide you want to do this. How do you decide? By going to a wrestling school. Two, once you get halfway in that ring, see if it's really what you want to do. Because it's a long road. It's 6 to 7 months before any good school should let you back in, even let you near a ring. And once you're in there, remember, learn from the people who are there. There are men and women in that ring who have been in this business on the independent side 15, 20, Gary Gold, 30 years. Learn from what they have to offer. Ask the questions. And above all, remember, you're there for the fans, not for yourself. Things they don't teach in wrestling school, ring psychology, respect for the business, respect for the people you work with. Those things, if you'll do those, you'll be successful. Doesn't mean you're going to get to AEW. Doesn't mean you're going to get to WWE. 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 are lucky enough to make it and stay there. Be happy on the level that you're at. I remember doing a show and one kid said to me, I got to go out there. I'm not laying down. I'm not putting that kid over. But you know what? You're not walking out with me. It doesn't make any difference what you do. We're out there to tell a story. I've got to get my shine. It isn't about your shine. It's about our shine, our story, our promotion, our fans. So if you'll do that, I think you'll be very successful. That's just me.
Well, John, I can speak for all of us. Like, thank you for coming on. Is there anything that you wanted to plug in, whether it was like social media or anything you have coming up that the people should know about?
Not really. I'm going to be doing a podcast or a show on the 31st for the Royal Rumble with Dan Maratti. I think Tony Atlas is going to be down there. There's another guy I have a lot of fun working with. So I would say not really. I'm just waiting for Atlantic Pro Wrestling and the report to start up again. Showcase Pro Wrestling. Cousin Larry up in Maine. The NWA to start up again up there and have some fun. Just get back to doing what I think I love to do best, and that's somebody who's handing me a note. Oh, yes. After SmackDown every Friday, there's a show called Fabulous Friday. That's what, I don't know if you've seen it or not. I tell you, I get killed all the time of it. It's on YouTube. I get more people saying, why did you shoot on Donald Trump? Why did you shoot on Sasha Banks? You know what? I am who I am. I stand behind what I say. I think there's one other promotion. 1 second. Can I get my cell phone here? I just want to put them over to them. It's so kind
Take your time.
to help me out.
No worries.
I probably can't remember the name of them. That's how Stiff Fist. Is it Stiff Fist Wrestling? Oh, the Whip Show podcast. So I'm doing a podcast with them. We should have a lot of fun doing that. What else? You guys don't have somebody throwing your notes, do you?
No,
There's no audience here. Just
just us.
Just us.
Just us.
Oh,
No,
She's a joke. You know, they've been after me to do a YouTube cooking show. Cooking with Johnny Fabulous. Cooking
Ooh.
with Senior.
Okay.
We'll see. You never know. We'll see. Outside of that, the only thing I just kind of want to say is I want to thank you, first of all, for putting up with me. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show. I'm very humbled by it. I want to thank everybody out there, all the fans who continue to support professional wrestling and the men and women who make it what it is today. I need to thank them for allowing me, just a little guy. And that means the people in WWE, AEW, Atlantic Pro Wrestling, Showcase, Boston Wrestling, big time wrestling, for allowing a little guy like me to be allowed to work with them and experience what it means to be involved in professional wrestling. All I can say is thank you. I owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude.
And John, I thank you for coming on, my friend. It's been a great honor to have you as our first guest. Guys, I'll close out the show on behalf of Dylan Sariva and Brandon Carr. We thank you. Actually, the guys don't even know. We talked before. I have a surprise for them.
Uh-oh.
That will be the YouTube exclusive that will air the day after this. Guys, John Fabulous over here, Johnny Fabulous, John Cena Sr. is going to rate. I'm going to have you guys cut a 30-second promo
Oh, man.
on anybody you want. And I'm going to have John Cena give you feedback. How do you guys sound about that? Does that sound good?
That sounds good. Yeah.
You think you can do it? Dylan,
Sounds like it'll be a good time. Yeah.
Yeah.
you guys heard it here first. You guys will catch that on YouTube the next day after this airs, whenever this airs. Hopefully, it will be February 1st if the editor can get this done.
Yeah.
John, to let you know, our editor is a pain in the butt. He kind of argues with me, calls me names a lot. So hopefully, he doesn't give me any beef about this. But John, again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All I can tell you this is when you cut promos, remember one thing. I'm John Cena Sr. When Johnny Fabulous comes through the curtains, it's a whole different person. Why am I Johnny Fabulous? Why am I John Cena Sr.? Whatever character you choose to be, however you choose to fight your battle or make your promo, it's kind of like, if I were going to cut a promo on Brandon, buddy, I look at you, Mr. Four Eyes. You don't shave. You don't dress well. You have no money. And I bet you live in your mother's basement.
Wow.
And you know what, Dylan? I can see you don't smile, and I know why. You don't have a girlfriend either. If you did, she probably left you because you have no money and you're too cheap to buy lunch. But if you're fabulous, if you're great, if you're rich, all the women want Fabo. All the ladies want to go for the ride. They all want to be in the boat because you know why? It's good to be great, but it's great to be fabulous. So that's the kind of stuff I want to see.
Bravo.
All I know is I
Honor.
can't wait for this promo. I can't wait for these promos. Guys, catch it on YouTube at The Daily Go. We will see you guys at the exclusive.